Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm here to talk about one of my favorite Pokemon to use in the tier. It's a Pokemon that you've probably noticed me splashing on a lot of teams, is Starmie. Um, Starmie is really nice because it's so fast and it's got so many great utility options, and options that are not that well distributed, so it's got a lot of unique traits to it that I think are really worth talking about, and that's that's the hook for this video here. So the viability rankings. The aggregate has Starmie at 16. I'm just gonna say this right now. If I had a viability ranking, Starmie would probably be like 12 or 13 for me. I think it's really that good. And I think it's a little bit underrated as far as these Pokemon go, but I think 16 is pretty respectable. Same tier as like Aerodactyl. That seems about right to me. But I have a little bit of a comment question for you guys here, and let's pull it up. Who do you think the better spinner in this tier is? Claydol or Starmie? You know, Claydol is definitely ranked higher according to the viability rankings. Not by a whole lot, though, still in the same tier. And I think Claydol sort of suggests a slightly different style of team to Starmie. I guess it depends, because Starmie's got a lot of versatility and can run some different sets, which we'll talk about soon. But yeah, I want to know what you guys think. Personally, I kind of lean a little more towards Starmie, but Claydol is really nice for that rock resist and that earthquake immunity. But I think I kind of slightly prefer Starmie, so that's my sort of take. But I want you guys to have your own informed opinions about it. So this is me quadruple dipping on this slide here, which is these base 100s. We should know by this point that they're a very strong tier, but if you didn't know, Celebi, Jirachi, Salamence, Zapdos, all really, really high tier Pokemon. Charizard and Flygon are also solid, like pretty good, and definitely worthy of their OU status, I would say. And yeah, all of them are really important because they've served some really good roles as offensive Pokemon in the tier. But being faster than them, as you can see in that top right corner, is a really big deal. And we're going to talk a little bit more about these Pokemon in particular. So the faster Pokemon here, higher than base 100, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Pokemon in the OU tier who are faster than base 100. Aerodactyl, Jolteon, Dugtrio, Starmie, and Gengar. All of these Pokemon are really good at providing fast utility or are strong revenge killers. In the case of, say, Gengar and Starmie, they can spread some status like T-Wave, Will-O-Wisp, etc. Dugtrio, of course, is probably the best revenge killer in the game. If you haven't seen my Dugtrio video yet, which most of you have not, you might want to check that out, although I will say that I think I've gotten a little bit better at making these videos since then, so take it with a grain of salt. And then, of course, Aerodactyl and Jolteon, they're like the peak, right? They're considered to be the fastest Pokemon in the tier. I know Ninjask and Electrode exist, but, like, do they really, though? Like, do they really exist in a serious game? No shade to Benji, who had a really nice Electrode team that he showed me, but I digress. Now let's talk about some UUBLs, because these Pokemon are kind of interesting as well, and I'm not going to talk about most of these Pokemon for at least a while, so let's get a little bit of insight on them. Crobat and Kadabra are fake. They don't exist in OU. Like, I mean, I've seen Crobat on a mono poison team, and in that specific context, it's not bad because it's got the earthquake immunity, but like mono poison is definitely not like a great team archetype. So I don't know if I would recommend it on anything else, anything on that's like supposed to be serious, but yeah, it's just like too weak, I think, to make use of its incredible 130 speed. And then Kadabra is like, well, Alakazam's right there. So, but the rest of these Pokemon are usually like fast revenge killer types that have like particular niches or matchups that they're keeping in mind. Tauros, for example, is, I mean, it's not that much better, or I mean, frankly, it's not better at all than something like Snorlax as far as being a physical normal type attacker, but it does have a decent enough attack stat that if you're up against a frail team, maybe like a special offense team that doesn't have a great defensive backbone, doesn't have a great normal resist on it, maybe you've already eliminated the Jirachi, for example, then Tauros can maybe punch some holes into that type of team. I've seen it a handful of times, and it's never been that great anytime that I've seen it, but I mean, I think you could do worse. I was gonna slander Zangoose, but I don't know, Zangoose is actually kind of respectable as well. Raikou is like legitimately a great Pokemon in this tier, and frankly, I think it could rise to OU, and there's been a lot of discussion about that recently. I have a little bit more to say about Raikou in my Raikou video, if you want to check that out, but needless to say, I think that Raikou is pretty legit as a CM spammer in the end game. It's like a team that has been weakened that, you know, you don't have to worry about a Blissey anymore. You don't have to worry about the Dugtrio revenge killing anymore. Raikou can come in if it gets a CM off and there's just like no Thunderbolt resist, then you'll just win. And yeah, it's a lot of setup and it takes a lot of positioning and smartly trading, but like I think a really good player can get a lot out of Raikou, and I mean, you've seen a lot of really good players get a lot out of Raikou, not the least withstanding ABR, who is arguably the best at ADV. I don't know, I guess like McMegan is definitely up there too, but McMegan will use Raikou as well, so like the Raikou agenda, let's spread it. Alakazam, I want to make a special note of. I've gotten a lot of requests for Alakazam. I've also gotten a lot of requests for Sceptile, but I think I'm going to let Zets touch that one before I get to it. Alakazam, I think, is a really interesting Pokemon. It's really frail, but it's got some interesting utility. It's almost like, kind of like what you see in Gen 9, if you're familiar with it, where you have this really fast Pokemon that is threatening to smash what's in front of it and force the switch, so then you can trick a Choice Band, for example, onto whatever the switch into Alakazam is, which a lot of times it's Blissey, so you can do that. Or you can come in on a Pokemon that is trying to get greedy and set up, like say a Tyranitar, and encore it so that it's stuck clicking Dragon Dance for many turns, and then you can obviously switch to something like a Metagross and easily force it out or get the kill. So yeah, these are some things that you see a lot more in modern gen. You don't see it so much here, and I think that Alakazam is really interesting, and I might be interested in making a video about it sometime in the not too distant future. And then Espeon I want to shout out as being an alternative CM plus Baton Pass Pokemon. I mean, I think Celebi is probably just better in many respects, but I think, you know, there might be a situation where you need that extra 30 base special attack, which is pretty significant to handle a particular Pokemon that would otherwise stop your sweep. So I think that's pretty cool, but the rest of them are kind of just like decent revenge killers. I mean, Sceptile's got that Subseed idea going on. Swellow, I think Vapakuno used like a Starfberry Baton Pass Swellow. Kind of interesting, but I don't know how much that would hold up in the modern iteration of this format. But that's enough about Pokemon who aren't Starmie. Let's talk about some more Pokemon who aren't Starmie, which is Bulky Waters. Well, Starmie is one of them, I should say. Water lends itself really well to defensive roles in this particular generation because of the low amount of weaknesses that it has, those being grass and electric. And then also keep in mind what the grass and electric type moves are. Most Pokemon's best grass type move is Hidden Power Grass. And like, okay, that's pretty good into Swampert because it's ×4 effective, but all the other ones, like a Milotic or a Suicune, which we're about to talk about, like, you're not doing significant damage to those unless you have, like, Stab, so, i.e. your name is Celebi. And then Electric, yeah, Electric is a little bit more common. There are a lot of Pokemon that get Thunderbolt and Thunder, but it's just those two moves, really. Like, you don't have to deal with any Volt Switch, you don't have to deal with any Wild Charge. Thunder Punch, I guess, kind of exists, and HP Electric sort of exists, mostly just to hit Gyarados. But, like, that's not fantastic distribution when you think about it. So, like, as long as you're not up against an Electric type, or, like, something with known high special attack and electric coverage, then you're probably like fine with your water type. And then you also resist a lot of relevant types like fire, ice. Those are two of the most common coverage options. You see a lot of Pokemon running Fire Blast and Ice Beam if they're able to do so. And then Meteor Mash is also a great resistance to have. Yes, I mean, technically, it means you resist Steel, but like I kind of say, Meteor Mash is really the only Steel move that you see. On occasion, you might see Iron Tail from something like a Steelix, and you might see HP Steel on some kind of cheesy sets, frankly. I mean, like, Registeel with Curse will sometimes run that, but like that's also very rare. Meteor Mash is the most relevant of those to resist. So here are the 4 Pokemon that I'm talking about with bulky waters. There are plenty of other low-tier bulky waters. I've talked about Ludicolo before, but there's also things like Mantine, there's Quagsire, there's Lantern. If you haven't seen, if you want to know what Lantern does, you should check out Zetz's video on it. So in any case, these are the ones I'm going to be talking about because they're the OU ranked ones. I'm not talking about Cloyster because that thing, yes, it has a really high defense stat, but it just wants to boom. So it's not really a bulky water per se. And I think there's another water type in the tier, but I thought that they were not quite as on it with this. It'll come to me which one I'm missing. The defensive stats, let's take a look at all of them. So all of these Pokemon have pretty good defenses. In fact, I would say really good defenses, except for Starmie, who's a little bit on the weaker side. 60 HP and 85s in the defenses is not great. Now, it does have a higher defense stat than Milotic, but because Milotic's HP stat is so much higher, it's kind of a moot point. I mean, you would love to have Milotic's special defense stat. That is really nice. But I think out of all of these, Suicune definitely has the best profile. 100, 115, 115 is just, like, that's incredible. And the mono water type does it a lot of good. You don't have to worry about any ×4 super effectives like Swampert does, so it makes it really easy to boost with Suicune. Which, I mean, obviously you should know that if you've been playing this tier, or if you've been watching Tetrafolium like you're supposed to. Maybe I should be saying that at the beginning, not 14 minutes in, because if you're watching up to 14 minutes in, then you are clicking the subscribe button if you haven't already. Alright, there we go. I plugged myself enough. But the thing about being a bulky water is not just your stats, it has to do with your utility as well. Like, what are you going to do with your stats? And yeah, some of them can run more on the offensive side, that's for sure, but we're talking about what can you do as a sort of utility Swiss Army knife kind of mon on the team. And I have a lot of text on the screen right now, but just bear with me. So these purple things here, purple text, like Hypnosis, Confuse Ray, Thunder Wave, you'll see. These are all the moves that are basically like status inflicting moves. I didn't put Toxic on any of these Pokemon because they all get Toxic. I also neglected to put anything like Protect or Rest because, again, they all get it. Granted, they all get Rain Dance as well, but Rain Dance is not a move that just any Pokemon gets, so I figured I would include it and shout out all of these Pokemon as potential options for your Weather Clear if you can afford to fit a move. I think that Swampert Loki is probably the hardest one to fit the move on, so I don't know if I would recommend Weather Clear Swampert per se, but I digress. We also have screens on some of these Pokemon, Light Screen and Reflect in green, and we have Refresh and Recover as these sort of healing moves in yellow/gold, whatever you want to say. And then these boosting moves like Psych Up, Calm Mind, Curse, they're going to be in red. So, and then everything else in white is just kind of like miscellaneous utility. I think that, yeah, I mean, if you look at Milotic, everything above Refresh is kind of real, a possibility that Milotic could use. Rain Dance is not entirely the best use of a move slot on Milotic, but if you need Weather Clear and you can't fit it on anything else, then Milotic is an option for you. And you could also maybe try to do a little bit more of an offensive idea with Milotic with Rain Dance plus Hydro Pump. Milotic has a base 100 special attack stat, so that's pretty good. But I want to note Confuse Ray, Mimic, and Psych Up as like sort of niche options. I don't particularly like Confuse as a mechanic. I think that it's a little bit... I don't want to say entirely uncompetitive. Like, I see the use case for it, and that it forces switches, but I think there are a lot cooler ways to force switches in this game, and I would rather see more of those than the cheesier options like Confuse Ray. So, like, I don't know if I would recommend that you use Confuse Ray, and even though it has that sort of utility, I think that Confuse Ray is too inconsistent. Yes, it has 100 accuracy, but like 50% to steal a turn from your opponent is kind of nice, but if you're relying on it, then 50% of the time you're gonna get screwed. I mean, a little bit less than that for Milotic because it has so much bulk, it's afforded a lot of extra hits, but yeah, I don't know if I love that though. Suicune's got some really interesting ones. It's the only one of these that gets Sunny Day, which is kind of nice. Calm Mind, of course, it's one of the best Calm Mind users in the format. It's got great defensive, or a lot of great defensive characteristics that help it to boost for a long time. And then I want to shout out this move here, Mist. Do you know what Mist does? You should comment down below before I explain it, but Mist is a move that, for 5 turns, your opponent cannot lower your stats. And while that seems like kind of lame as a move, right? Like, most of the way that people deal with Suicune and its stat boosting is using Roar or Whirlwind to phase it. But I think that there's kind of some interesting utility in Mist. Sometimes a Pokemon's counterplay to Suicune is to use Screech or Metal Sound to lower Suicune's defenses and force it to switch. I've also seen Rock Smash on Poliwrath to try to fish for the lowering of defense on Suicune. And you could use Mist as a way to play around that. So if your opponent is trying to deal with a Lastmon Suicune by lowering its stats, then you could just use Mist to play around that. And because it lasts for 5 turns, if you rest right after using Mist, you'll wake up and the Mist boost will still be active. So that could be kind of interesting. Maybe that will be what the Suicune video turns into, testing that out, but I don't know. It seems a little bit niche, and I feel like in the vast majority of cases, something like Toxic or Ice Beam or Sleep Talk or Roar is going to be more beneficial to you. But could be interesting. Swampert, frankly, is a little light on the utility moves. Curse, Refresh, and Mimic, and Roar. Roar's a pretty good one. That's kind of all you've got. I like Refresh for Swampert in particular, because it does, unlike Milotic and Starmie, it does not really benefit from being statused. Granted, neither of the two of these other Pokemon that I mentioned love to be status, but Milotic's Marvel Scale gives it a defense boost. I think it's 1.5 times while it's status, and Starmie has Natural Cure, so it can switch out and cure its status anyway. So you could be in a decent spot with something like Starmie coming in on a Toxic, and then you can guarantee that you're not going to get frozen or paralyzed for the next few turns while you're in. So that's not so bad. And speaking of Starmie, it's got some pretty nice utility moves. It's got both Light Screen and Reflect, which none of the rest of these Pokemon get. Thunder Wave at the bottom is really, really good to note. But that's kind of it. And you're like, well, that's not that impressive because, I mean, look at Milotic and Suicune's list. They've got some crazy moves on there. And I'm saying to you, I lied. Starmie's got way more than you thought it did. For one, Rapid Spin, which is not a status move, but it is one of the best utility moves in the game because it removes one of the best, I mean, probably the best utility move in the game, which is Spikes. Gold Mason maybe argues that Thunder Wave is the best, but if in that case, it still pushes the Starmie agenda because Starmie's got Thunder Wave. So yeah, Rapid Spin, great utility move. And then we have some other kind of niche ones. Camouflage is kind of interesting. It changes your type depending on the terrain, but every simulated battle, which is what you're going to have on Showdown, is the terrain that gives you normal type. It's not a fantastic move, but there might be some applications for dodging, say, a Pursuit Trap from Tyranitar or Houndoom. Against Houndoom in particular, that would be really nice, actually. But it's kind of niche. If you're not up against a team with a Pursuit Trapper, then Camouflage is almost completely useless. Normal is not a significantly better defensive type than Water Psychic. I mean, Water Psychic has some slight problems, like being weak to HP Bug, but it's not a bad defensive type by any means. And you definitely have a lot more resistances, which Starmie loves to make use of its resistances because its defensive stats are a little bit subpar, at least for a defensive Pokemon. We also have Confuse Ray. We have Nightmare, which is a really, strange move. It basically applies poison damage if a Pokemon is sleeping. So that means that the status cures when the Pokemon wakes up, and Starmie does not have a move that can put the opponent to sleep native into its kit. So you would have to split this between different Pokemon, which I think makes it not really worth it, but it could be kind of funny. So that's good to know. We have Mimic as well, Psych Up as well. We've kind of already discussed that. Cosmic Power is really interesting. Not very many Pokemon get this, but it raises your defense and special defense at the same time. Now, Starmie has pretty, mediocre defense stats, and I feel like it's a crit away from dying to anything. So I don't know if I particularly love Cosmic Power, but I mean, you have Recover, so Cosmic Power plus Recover might be able to stall out a game towards the end. Both of those moves have 32 PP as far as I'm aware. You know what, I'm not fact-checking myself. I'll have the true Tetrafolium Patriots fact-check me in the comment section. Then there's Flash, which is a pretty bad move, both in execution and in theory. 70 base power, or 70 base accuracy, I should say, move. which lowers your opponent's accuracy if it hits. I mean, are you like, are we that desperate to cheese? Like, I think it's an inconsistent strategy for one, because if your opponent just hits, then like your accuracy debuffs have not really worked. And then this one is particularly bad because it's so inaccurate itself. And Starmie is a pretty frail Pokemon, so if the opposing Pokemon ever gets a hit through, it's liable to 2-hit KO Starmie at the very least. Now, I guess there are some Pokemon that don't have great moves to hit Starmie in the first place. Take like a defensive Swampert. Yeah, Earthquake is pretty good, but uninvested, it's not really going to overcome a Starmie. So I think that maybe there's some use for Flash, but I would not recommend it because I really don't like these accuracy debuff moves. In fact, I think there's been some talk about banning them, and if that is on the docket and there's some way for me to input, then yes, I vote ban on those. I think that they're not good for the game. Then there's Skill Swap at the bottom, which is another move that is really like weirdly distributed. There are not very many Pokemon that get it, but Starmie can make some decent use of this. You could pass Natural Cure, which is a pretty good ability to something, but if that other Pokemon like makes really good use of its ability, then you can steal that. So I don't know what an example would be. Maybe like Serene Grace Jirachi, you steal its Serene Grace, and now you can start spamming like Thunder or something, and you've got the 60% Paralysis Thunder on your Starmie, so that's kind of cool. Starmie also has another ability, Illuminate, which does literally nothing in the simulated battles. I believe its in-game effect is that it makes it more likely that you'll run into a wild Pokemon. You could skill swap that, I guess, but I mean, because skill swapping for Serene Grace and then going for Thunder Para, and then your opponent has Serene or Natural Cure is kind of not great. But yeah, I guess that's another kind of cheesy strategy. We spent a lot of time talking about some things that maybe one person ever will try, but you know what? We're here for that. We're here to help the one person who wants to innovate the metagame. So, HClat, you're welcome. The speed breakdowns on these Pokemon, Starmie's the fastest with a 115 base speed, then Suicune's got 85, Milotic's got 81, which is a really interesting place to be at, and Swampert's at 60. So, Starmie definitely is blowing all of these out of the water in terms of speed, and getting fast Thunder Waves, Toxics, Screens, etc. up is really, really nice. You like to be faster so that you can guarantee that you're going to get them off against most Pokemon. Now, Swampert and Suicune, for example, well, and Milotic as well, they all have really nice defense, and they're very likely to live a hit, so they can trade for that sort of thing, but they're also a little bit susceptible to like some really like powerful Pokemon exploiting their slowness for their own gain. They could be trying to get their utility off on these Pokemon. So Starmie is a little bit more resilient against that. I think because we mentioned Rapid Spin as a utility move, and Starmie is one of the most prominent Rapid Spinners in the format, I'm going to recycle this slide as well that compares the Rapid Spin users of ADV. If you want to know a little more about it, you should watch my Armaldo video, but needless to say that Starmie is definitely more on that offensive type of spinning utility. It's kind of hybrid as well because it's got so many good utility moves, and its type is conducive to defensive roles, despite the fact that its defenses are not quite as high as the other Rapid Spinners. But yeah, if you want something to shoot off a really strong stab Hydro Pump, like, then Starmie is really good for this, and I think that um, it's got some nice qualities. And then the recover is still just fantastic for increasing your longevity. None of these other Pokemon have a recovery move other than rest, so keep that in mind. Starmie is arguably the best at coming back in and spinning again. But I guess Claydol also has some nice longevity thanks to its spikes and sand immunity. But Smogon's set here, oftentimes called Defensive Starmie, or for short DefMie, is this guy with Rapid Spin Recover. And then the last two moves, you can do a little bit of difference here. Surf is definitely the most common of the moves that you could pick from. It's possible you could go for something like Hydro Pump instead, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because you already don't have a lot of special attack investment, so you're not making the best use out of the additional base power of Hydro Pump if you're using it on this particular set. And then the last move, there's just like tons of options: Thunder Wave, Psychic, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam. I think that Toxic is something worth noting. Now, Starmie can't really, it can't really do Toxic any better than, say, like a Milotic. But if you need to compress your bulky water with something with Toxic status with Rapid Spin, then I think it's definitely worth considering for Starmie. Thunder Wave is definitely better for uniqueness and as well as facilitating your offensive Pokemon. But if you're on a bulkier team, I could definitely see the argument for Toxic there. Psychic, there's been a lot of discourse about this in Zetz's Discord server, and I think it seems like most people are not a big fan of Psychic on Starmie, especially not on like a 4 attacks Starmie set. And I tend to agree. I think that T-Wave and Surf are sufficient for hitting Gengar, and Psychic is essentially just to hit Gengar. Now you have the benefit that you'll hit something like Breloom and Heracross and like the kind of rare Hariyama and Machamp a little harder, but I don't know how much of a consideration that really is. Primarily you're clicking Psychic into Gengar. Thunderbolt is a nice option for hitting opposing waters, but because you have such low special attack, you're not really gonna break them with Thunderbolt. In that case, Ice Beam I think is the best because Salamence and Flygon are definitely really scared of Ice Beam. And then you can fish for a freeze chance if you would like, which, is it the most ethical way to play the game? I don't know, probably not, but it's there, so might as well use it, right? So for some alternative options, at least in terms of the EV spread, the suggestions are you could run 32 special defense to avoid an OHKO after sand damage from Pursuit Tyranitar. So this will allow you to be able to switch out versus Pursuit Tyranitar and not die. Good if you're going to do a much more bulky variant of Starmie. You're going to have to cut into the speed a little bit to kind of manage that, but good to know. You can forego your special attack investment to outrun a Salac Berry Endeavor Swampert. So that's kind of nice because otherwise your counterplay to that is to spam recover. And yeah, that's not fantastic. You'll have to go basically max speed to get there because you would hit 361 Swampert with a +1 boost at its fastest. Hits 360, so it's good to know. And you're probably going to break a Swampert substitute with Surf, especially the N-Pert. They're going to be much more offensively oriented in their investments, so good to know if you would like to have some resilience against N-Pert. You can run considerably less speed. 176 is good enough for Adamant Dugtrio, which is, I believe, it's 340 or 341. I've run Starmies with that kind of speed stat as well. You do sort of miss out on being faster than max speed Gengar, which is what the idea of 216 speed EVs is. But a lot of Gengar are cheating on their speed stat. Like a lot are going down to like 332, 333, just to outspeed an Adamant +1 Tyranitar. So you can still outspeed that, which is nice. And then also Starmie, if you don't have Psychic in particular, it's not like you're really going to stay in and duel the Gengar anyway, so a little bit of speed reduction is not that bad. And the reason why I say you're not dueling the Gengar anyway is because if the Gengar has T-Bolt, it's going to smash you. If it has Giga Drain, it's probably also going to smash you. So, like, unless you're getting the securing the kill on it, then I don't know if I would necessarily recommend that. Maybe if you have like a Pursuit Trapper and you want Starmie to be able to finish off the Gengar, then that's a little more important. But I digress here. 136 is good for the base 100s. That gets you to 300 speed, so that's really nice for them. Actually, is that true? Is it 300? It might be 329 if you have a timid nature, and then 300 if you have a not speed boosting nature, which a lot of times that tends to be bold if you're running that slow. Bold Starmie is really cool, and I've used that on a team before. I can't remember which team, but it was the one that was running Toxic. So check that set out if you can find it. 56 speed for Moltres, and then you can even go, they're saying bold with heavy physical defense investment to check Tyranitar, Metagross, Swampert, Aerodactyl. They're saying that you should run a minimum of 16 speed EVs to outspeed Heracross and Suicune. I believe that would be the Adamant Heracross, and Suicune almost never runs 252 speed, but if it happens to do 252 modest, then there you go. Starmie changes how you play it depending on your speed investment. You know, your slow Starmies are going to want to be more a bulky water. Spread status, click recover a lot, get some safe chip with Surf, do that sort of thing. Faster Starmies are going to be better against spike teams because you are threatening Gengar more commonly. So that's the kind of long and the short of DefMie, but we don't like DefMie because we're in the cult of AVR. The AVR mind virus has taken over our minds. So what does AVR have to say about Starmie? He says, offensive all the way, modest Surf, and then pick any three of Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Rapid Spin, Recover, and you're good. That's kind of insane. Modest Starmie is not ultra common. A lot of times you like to pump that speed stat, but we will talk a little bit about the idea of a modest Starmie. So we're not going to spoil too much here. ABR says that offensive Starmie is going to clean through offensive teams as well as defensive teams with some prerequisite steps taken, like removing Blissey, for example. OffMie, which is short for offensive Starmie, is beautiful in the sense that it actually scares Skarm out directly, so you can keep the spikes away. T-Wave is valid, according to ABR, but hinge more on spinning and require very precise play versus a Toxic Skarmory, Gengar, or a Pursuit Tyranitar. And yeah, I mean, this is ABR basically saying that Surf is valid in his eyes. I think it makes a little more sense, I guess, if you're going to do modest to have Surf. You get the extra bit of damage, so you can afford to be a little bit more consistent with your accuracy. So that makes sense. And then ABR is not exactly saying this, but kind of saying it without saying it, that if you want a defensive spinning, you should use Claydol instead. Starmie is seems to be better on these sort of like, you know, this like guard Doug is usually like a special offense type of idea. ABR is saying basically that's what he likes to play with Starmie, and I think that's valid. Let's take a look at what Smogon's set is, and this one is not exactly adhering to ABR's principles. It's going to rely more on Hydro Pump and then max out its speed stat. I should note that you have the option to run Surf on this as the 4th move as well. They don't necessarily say that, but if you want to have that sort of switching between a consistent move to finish off a weakened Pokemon versus the Hole Puncher, you can have that. So let's read what they say here at the bottom, is that Pump, despite its unreliability, is needed to get a potential OHKO on Claydol. It can OHKO Tyranitar if it doesn't have a lot of bulk, and it has a chance to 2-hit KO Fortress. It will always 2-hit KO Gengar, which is kind of nice. And with spikes, you can wear down things like a defensive Jirachi, Metagross, Snorlax. Ice Beam is great into Salamence, of course. Flygon is another consideration. Although Flygon doesn't love to take a Hydro Pump either. But you also will hit things like Venusaur and Zapdos and Celebi. Thunderbolt is going to be good into Skarmory and all the water types. So that's kind of the long and the short here. They call the 4 attacks variants of a lot of Pokemon Rainbow. So Psychic here could be for like an idea for a Rainbow Starmie. And Psychic is primarily just to get the OHKO on Gengar. I don't think it's really that worth it, because especially if you're running this much speed, you're already going to outspeed Gengar. Catch it switching in with something, and then like you're threatening to kill it with Pump. Like, Gengar cannot switch in on this Starmie at all, even if it doesn't have Psychic. So I think that Psychic is like a crutch for not being able to position well against the Gengar, so I wouldn't recommend it. Recover is kind of nice. It gives you a little bit more longevity. Sometimes Starmie's going to force a switch, and you maybe don't necessarily have the best move to hit whatever they're going to switch to, and Recover is going to give you the sort of the best use of your turn to get some HP back in some cases. There's also an argument for HP Grass to try to nail Swampert. I think I've seen that somewhere before. I can't really put my finger on it. I don't think it would be on Zetz's fake hyper offense team or anything like that. No, that's kind of an interesting tech. I respect it. But Spin is probably going to be the most common thing. And Spin is great. Unlike Cloyster, who is that offensive type of spinner, because Starmie's got a lot more speed, it's actually going to be able to get its spin off in a lot of cases, whereas Cloyster, it's going to need to come in against like a mid to low speed Pokemon in order to get its rapid spin off safely. So yeah, that's kind of the premise here. But that's weak shit.
No gas, no break, got it, IB!
OffMie, I sleep. MysticMie, that's real shit. And here's the set here. Alright, so first I want to give credit to Spreak for coming up with this particular set. The teams that I'm going to show are also very heavily inspired by Spreak, who is really cool member of the community. He's got some interesting teams. Although it was not cool of you to use that Trapinch team against me on ladder and then post it for replay of the week. That was not cool, and I'm not forgiving you for that. And I'm not forgiving Jonald either for building that team. You sick man. In any case, the idea with this Starmie is that we're going to have a monster special attack stat. Well, okay, maybe not completely monster, like 252 plus nature on base 110, or sorry, I wish it was 110. It's 100. Is like, that's respectable, but not like over the top. But we're gonna make it over the top by using Hydro Pump, which is our strongest stab move, and we're gonna stack Mystic Water on this. Do you know what Mystic Water does? That gives us an extra 10% damage on our water type moves. So it's like having a second modest boost. And why do we want all of that? Well, we're trying to get some crazy damage off on some like pretty key Pokemon, particularly a lot of lead Pokemon, or Pokemon that tend to want to switch in. And I want to note that this is the fastest Pokemon that can achieve like this kind of damage. It's going to be the strongest as well for any Pokemon that is higher than base 70. Yeah, like Gorobis and Amistar technically have stronger Hydro Pumps, but like they're so slow. Being slower than Metagross is not really going to help you kill the Metagross per se. They'll just boom. But in any case, we're getting a one-shot kill on a 4 HP Tyranitar, the guaranteed, and we're 87.5% likely to one-shot a 252 HP Tyranitar, which I think is a testament to just how bulky Tyranitar is. It's kind of unfair, but Starmie is just that dog, that it can manage to almost get there 100% of the time against a 252 Tar. Every fire type is scared of this. Claydol is going to die to this. And then offensive Gengar is going to be dead 75% of the time. We're going to 2-hit KO a lot of things as well, like Metagross, Heracross. Doesn't really matter how much investment they're running, we're just going to 2-hit KO them. Every Zapdos set that is not rest, i.e. like 252 HP, 252 Spadef, we're going to 2-hit KO those. Skarmory, you're dead to 2. Fortress is going to die to 2. Defensive Gengar, Breloom, Magneton, Super Rachi, which is the 252 Spatak and Speed Jirachi, and most Swampert sets will get 2-hit KO'd as well. Some of the Swampert sets run just enough Spadef to make it a roll, and if you ran a little bit more than that, you could even guarantee that you would survive, but you don't really see that so often. Arguably, you could take the last move. I mean, that last move slot is really customizable. You can do whatever you want with it. HP Grass could be something if you are really scared of Swampert, but I feel like just hit 2 pumps, man. I mean, that would be kind of the rub with this Starmie set, is if it misses its pump, you're in a little bit of a pickle, but it's kind of fine. The Bolt Beam coverage is going to be really good at hitting a lot of things that would be a decent switch into Hydro Pump. We have a 56% chance to OHKO Cloyster. Cloyster is trying to live a timid Thunderbolt from Starmie, and because we're giving the 10% boost, we're actually going to boost up to the point that we're favored to get the OHKO on Cloyster, which is kind of nice. We have a greater than 50% chance to 2-hit KO an offensive Suicune, and we will 3-hit KO any defensive Suicune so long as they don't get any boosts. So that's kind of nice. That means that defensive Suicune is going to have some trouble trying to rest boot the Starmie. Ice Beam is great into Mence, it's great into Flygon, it'll kill Breloom. And every Celebi set except for Utility Celebi is going to get 2-hit KO'd. But even Utility Celebi is going to have to click a lot of recovers to try to get out of range to die to the next Ice Beam, especially considering that Ice Beam could crit, it could freeze, it could do a lot of nastiness. The last move that we have here is Light Screen, and that's just to give us something to click into lead Suicune. Sometimes lead Suicune is going to stay in and go for like an HP Grass or Electric. Sometimes they're going to just try to Calm Mind up in our face. And if we can get a light screen off, then we can either choose to 1v1 it with Thunderbolt after, or we could potentially get a switch to something that would handle Suicune a lot better given that we have the light screen boost. So that's the option that Spreak came up with, and I'm going to roll with it because I think it's a good idea. But if you would like HP Grass, for example, that's fine. Surf is also a consideration. We have a really, really strong Surf at our disposal if we want it. And Pump plus Surf is going to kill a lot of things. A lot of these Pokemon that are 2-hit KO'd would die to Pump plus Surf. So, you could give yourself slightly better odds to secure a kill early, which is the kind of ideal with this Starmie, because we're going to lead it. So, yeah, that's it. I also want to note, which is something that you should know if you watched my Raikou video, that these 115 base speed Pokemon, i.e. Raikou and Starmie, and I guess Persian, but okay. These Pokemon with 252 speed, no speed boosting nature, are natively faster than the base 100s. Their base 100s hit 328, and we hit 329. So, that's phenomenal. We will also outspeed defensive Gengar, who is generally trying to creep Moltres at about 308. So that's important to note because we do 2-hit KO it if we can hit 2 pumps. And yeah, so that's quite nice. Gengar is not a good switch into this Starmie set at all. It's going to have to come in on Revenge Kill. And even sometimes Off-Guard, I don't think Off-Guard is going to run slower than this. I think you would want to have a faster Ice Punch into, say, Salamence, but, if somebody's really cheating, you can try to catch them. Alright, so what nasty team are we going to put this onto? It's a great question. This is the sort of idea here is that we're going to play a hyper offense. So earlier you might have heard me mention Zetz's hyper offense team and how I'm saying it's kind of a fake hyper offense. There's a little bit of nuance here, and there's also some room for interpretation, so you can feel free to disagree with me. That's totally fine, and if you do, then elo check. No, I'm sorry. No, but a lot of the people who watch me are better at playing this format than I am, so I have to stay humble because otherwise I'm going to get humbled by one of my viewers. In any case, yes, Zetz's hyper offense is more about positioning the Pokemon. You have some Pokemon that take really good advantage of particular switches, and then you press your advantage by going for strong moves. And to me, that fits more into the offense structure. Hyper offense being the next step up. And I would say that these two teams are more on the hyper offense side, because the idea is we're not necessarily trying to gain a positional advantage by switching. We're trying to gain a positional advantage by trading. Meaning that I'm going to have something like Starmie, for example, in the lead that is going to click a really, really powerful button that is going to chip something that switches in, or chip whatever's in front of me. Then I'm going to allow Starmie to further chip or finish off whatever switched in. And then I have to assess, if I lose Starmie here, does that set me up for one of these other Pokemon to win the game? And as you can see, we have a lot of win cons here. Dragon Dance Salamence, offensive Suicune with Calm Mind, of course. Agility Boom meta. We have a bulky DDTR on the Arrow version of this team, and we have Super Celebi on the Celebi version of this team. I'm gonna say I don't know how many people use this abbreviation if you're not really into ADV GSC. Maybe DPP would use this as well, but B, a lot of people say that as an abbreviation for Celebi. I would say Celeb a lot, but B is definitely a lot quicker to say, so I might adopt that. So if I ever say B, I mean Celebi. Yeah, so any of these Pokemon could come in and with the right turn boost up and then just win the game, and that's kind of the idea that you're looking for. Is you more so want to punch holes and then sack so that you can get a free switch to one of these win cons, and then hopefully you just win the game from there. And if you don't, say like Metagross gets his agility off and then kills something and then has to boom into something else. All right, well, you traded 2 for 1, and you have 3 other win cons on your team. An Aerodactyl is a great cleaner. If you're using that version, Tyranitar is has some slightly different ideas on the Celebi version of the team. It's more so the answer to Blissey. So that's kind of that's why I don't necessarily have the same Tyranitar between the two. If you prefer bulky DD Tyranitar, you can definitely switch that in if you're going to use the Super Celebi version. But that's kind of the long and the short of this team. I say at the top, stop thinking, click buttons. And yeah, Hyper Offense kind of gets this reputation of being like this turn the brain off, just click buttons type of team. You can't really do that. You have to, I think Hyper Offense, you want to spend a lot of time thinking about your early game moves, because you have to get plays right and also like play smartly into your opponent's possible options so that you can position yourself to win in the end game. You know, say for example, you recognize that your opponent's team is going to lose to Tyranitar getting a DD. You have to then play the game in such a way that you facilitate that Tyranitar is going to get a DD, and you have to use your other Pokemon to counter the things that you would otherwise need Tyranitar to counter, so that you don't expend your HP / item / whatever on Tyranitar early. So it does take I think Hyper Offense takes a little bit more game knowledge to actually like get a decent rating with it, which is why I dropped Elo with these teams. But it is a really fun archetype. It gets some fast-paced games, so if you're looking to spam queue the ladder and get 100 games out in a day, which not like I've ever done that before, then these would be the kind of teams that you would want for that. All right, so let's move on now. Go into the scene here, and let's play some music here. I just love those like tubular bells at the beginning, and the timpani as well. This is of course the legendary theme from Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. So what plays when you fight against Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. But I'm using it for Starmie here because we're all gas, no brakes. So let's see what we do here. So lead Starmie versus lead Arcanine. All right, well, that's great for me. I'm just gonna click Hydro Pump. There aren't very many great switch-ins for Hydro Pump. Celebi would be one of them, but I happen to be playing the Super Celebi version of this team, so I'm just gonna go to Celebi as a good switch to this Celebi. If you're playing the Arrow version where you don't have Celebi, you don't have a great switch into opposing Celebi, so you'll have to maybe play a little bit aggressive on potential Celebi switches so that you don't end up losing to them. My opponent decides to Baton Pass to Blastoise, which is kind of strange, honestly. And then they say in the chat, please no Drain, which tells me that I'm just going to click Giga Drain here. I knew that Blastoise was just coming into Roar, but there's a lot of options on my team to punish the Blastoise. Here I'm just going to sack my Tyranitar. It's a pretty slow Tyranitar, and this is a decently fast Blastoise, so It's kind of not nice, but I identify that I probably don't need Tyranitar to win versus what I've seen so far. And I'm going to go to Starmie, set up a light screen so that I can survive multiple surfs. And then I'm going to just chip this down with many Thunderbolts here. So Umbreon comes in, probably threatening a pursuit, so I'm just going to take my Hydro Pump damage. Instead goes for Wish. And I feel like Umbreon is probably just going to click Protect here, so I'm going to take that as an opportunity to switch. The thing about Hyper Offense is, like, you're not going to switch a lot because the goal is to safely position your win cons, and the easiest way to do that is on Revenge. But when you identify a situation where, like, this Umbreon had to basically click Protect there, like, there's not a really good play, considering that they went for the Wish early, that they could do otherwise. Maybe they could have went to Blastoise, but, like, I don't know. I feel like even that wouldn't have been that great a play. So I'm going to take it to this opportunity to go to Metagross. I'm going to Meteor Mash. My opponent says, what the fuck is that thing holding? Be scared, Jugglesif. Yeah. So I punch the Umbreon, and I identify that both Arcanine and Blastoise would die to an Earthquake switch in. And I feel like this Umbreon's not going to get much out of staying in. It's just going to have to protect. I'm going to fish for another Meteor Mash raise, which would be the death of a team like this. So I get a very astute Earthquake off onto the Arcanine. Blastoise comes in. I'm going to switch to Suicune here, because Suicune should just wall Blastoise. It's probably going to roar me, so I think I end up just trying to take damage here. And I have HP Grass. I hit the Celebi for admittedly not that much damage. But I'm going to stay in and go for an Ice Beam to try to get damage here. Maybe that wasn't the best because this Celebi is obviously faster than me based on the Sandstorm. And yes, Calm Mind Baton Pass Celebi tends to run pretty quick. I think it's faster than Moltres. But I figured that if this doesn't have Recover, I might as well get some damage on it early. My opponent switches to Umbreon here on my Salamence, which I feel like is not really the best. I feel like Blastoise would probably be better, because I just end up getting a switch back to Metagross. Yeah, it's got extra special attack, but the only attack it's gonna have is probably like Pursuit. Yes, it can go for a Baton Pass, keep the chain going to Blastoise, but I got a +1 boost off on the Umbreon because it's so passive. I can just fish for it. That now the Blastoise is kind of just gonna have to take an Earthquake to the face. Now Blastoise is faster than my Metagross, and it's in Torrent range, so its next Surf would kill. So I switched to Celebi to cover that. And then my opponent decides to just let the Blastoise go, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. But okay. Medicham comes in and I Psychic it. It goes for Substitute and is down to 9%. If it was a, like, say a sub Salac Medicham, it would have been cooked. But yeah, Shadow Ball does not kill my Celebi, and my opponent is just going to forfeit the game there. I feel like they should have probably played a little bit more to get that Celebi in, particularly against my Celebi. And especially if they had Recover. And then I feel like Umbreon was just it was a momentum sink for this team. I think it's a pace mismatch, and I don't necessarily recommend sticking with it. I would probably do Houndoom instead if you want a Pursuit Trapper for this type of team. It would benefit a lot from getting the Spatak boost as well. Now, granted, I don't know if you want Houndoom plus Arcanine that much, but yeah, I don't know. That Umbreon, I think, was not great for Jugglesif here. Shoutouts to Umbreon, though. I made a video about it, if you would like to check that out. We have a game here against Bumping Along, who I believe is an alt of the person who I played in my first Old Money set. So let's see how we do here. Lead Vaporeon, which has got to be like one of the worst matchups for us. because we're gonna have to go for a T-Bolt. Doug Trio comes in, and I'm probably gonna live any move that the Doug Trio goes for, so I'm just gonna go for Ice Beam because I'm modest and I should kill Doug Trio with a modest Ice Beam. And whatever switches in might also be weak to Ice Beam, so Suicune is not, but I get the freeze on it, so that's pretty good. I'm just gonna stay in and take my Thunderbolt damage, and I do 51% to the Suicune. It doesn't have any leftovers, so I'm assuming that it's an offensive Suicune, but yeah. And I get the crit, and I just kill the Zapdos there, and that's it. Starmie would have probably 6-0'd this entire team, based on that luck. And that's kind of the thing with this Starmie is, like, if you get that luck, I mean, what can your opponent do? Like, I froze that Suicune, it was over. And then my opponent says, GG, see you tomorrow, which was really menacing. And I came to find out that actually it was my old money opponent playing on ladder. They saw my Starmie tech. That's kind of interesting. But I didn't reveal any of this team. Maybe I should have played this team. Nah. In any case, yeah, that's what Starmie can do. On to the next one. Starmie against Lead Metagross. This is a Pokemon that we don't quite one-hit KO, but if it doesn't go for Boom, then we'll 2-hit KO it. So it didn't go for Boom, so that's awesome for us. Raikou in. I'm just going to click Hydro Pump because I want to get a bunch of damage on it if it goes for a Calm Mind. But it did not. It just decided to get the kill, which is totally fine. I'm going to get a Dragon Dance boost up on the Raikou, predicting that my opponent would want to switch out. I'm going to go for Rock Slide into the Ments because we are really strong with our Tyranitar, so we might be able to get the kill, and if we don't, we have a flinch chance. But I'm going to go to Salamence here, who's going to Dragon Dance up against the Entpert. We end up having to take a lot of damage on Metagross here, but that's kind of okay. I go for Earthquake. I maybe could have went for Boom, because that would have allowed me to go to one of my Pokemon to threaten the Swampert out, but instead of going down to 2% HP with another substitute, my opponent decides to try to get a Torrent boosted pump into the Metagross, which would have been really good for them, but they miss, and I get the Earthquake kill. So I guess that's, you live by the pump, you die by the pump. I know that as a Lead Starmie user. Gengar comes into Fire Punch, and it does not kill. So I'm just going to trade the Meteor Mash back, and here I'm just going to Boom. Because if they go for a substitute, I'm just killing that. Or if they switch, I want to kill that. I guess Earthquake is equivalently fine, but I guess Boom is a little better if they double the Ments for some reason. Now I'm into Tyranitar. I'm going to Dragon Dance up. And because I'm bulky Tyranitar, I should live 2 T-Bolts. So I'm going to Dragon Dance again, so I can guarantee that I'm going to be faster than the Raikou. So I Earthquake here. If the Raikou paralyzes me, I have Lumberry, so I don't care. And this should just be GG. I mean, yeah, you can switch around with the Ments and all that, but I catch that with Rock Slide. Because I figured that +2 Rock Slide was going to kill that Raikou. I get a critical hit on this Tyranitar, which might have mattered. But I also had 2 more Mons in the back to try to deal with the Raikou. In particular, I think I was running the... I must have been running the Aerodactyl version of this team because I have DD Tyranitar. So as long as I find a trade into Raikou, I should just win with Aerodactyl in the back. So I guess like my Salamence could have 1v1 this Salamence in theory, the Tyranitar after it got blasted by the Earthquake, and then I'm going for Earthquake into Raikou, which would kill it if it went for Calm Mind, and it would also I would be fine. I think you know. I think you know what I mean. We're going on to the next one. We're getting a lot of games in today, but that's fine because these are fast-paced games. I go for Hydro Pump because I have a roll to kill Medicham, but I don't get it, and it's a Salac Medicham, which sucks. I go to Mence to get the Intimidate off on the Medicham, and I should be fine to take a hit from it. If it crit Rock Slide, that would have been bad. If it flinched, that could have been bad as well, but I'm just gonna roll with it here. Suicune is in. I'm going to counter Calm Mind against the Suicune. I'm going for HP Grass here to get some damage off. I'm also trying to play around Roar if it has that. Roar's probably winning the game from here, to be honest, because I don't have anything that can really handle this anymore. Metagross, if it lived a Surf, I could have boomed, but it's kind of over. But I feel like, given that my opponent hasn't roared yet, they probably don't have it. I go for another HP Grass here, trying to get the crit, assuming that Roar could be coming out on that turn. But given that they didn't go for it, like, it's over. And they reveal Ice Beam, which, yeah, I mean, that tells me all I need to know. They're trying to get an Ice Beam freeze, but I can just go to +6. As long as they don't crit or freeze me, I'm just going to win this in the long run. And if not win this, then at the very least force the Suicune to rest. Force it to surf. I guess it did just surf there. I was gonna go for rest here. No. Don't quite get the rolls needed, but probably would have rested a turn earlier had I gotten the higher rolls. But I know that it's Ice Beam, so it cannot be Sweep Talk as well. I'm going to go for Agility because I know that Suicune has to spend a turn asleep. And then I'm catching the opposing Metagross with an Earthquake there. It's faster than my Metagross, but not fast enough. Snorlax comes in. I'm just going to boom on it because forget that. Starmie is in. I go for Hydro Pump and I kill Magneton. Very important to know that I can do that. And then Suicune comes in, but I should 3-hit KO this with Thunderbolts. And this is like exactly what I'm talking about with this modest Starmie. Like, you're getting there. My opponent takes the kill on my Starmie and then forfeits. I think that's really funny. Yeah, I think Salamence probably was going to cook their team from here. If not, Aerodactyl in the back should have gotten there. So... yeah, that's fine. Going on to the next game, Now to More 1, which I think is a reference to an anime. I believe Charlotte is the name of the anime. I haven't seen it myself, but I guess it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't think there's a coincidence that I'm showing all the replays against a Celebi team where I have the Celebi variant, because I think that the Arrow variant is not quite as nice because you don't have a great switch into Celebi. Yeah, you could switch to Arrow and threaten it out with HP Fly or HP Bug, but yeah, I don't think that's fantastic. My opponent decides to stay in with Skarmory there, which is, I think, a pretty bad misplay. Yeah, if I'm Surf Suicune or if I'm going for like Calm Minds or something, you can try to sneak a Spike or a Roar in. But if I was offensive Suicune, I was killing you there, and I feel like you needed a Scout for that. I am pretty good to just keep clicking moves with Suicune, and as you notice, like, I'm not switching against anything other than Celebi, because I have a dedicated Celebi switch. And then against this Metagross, like, I don't have a, again, because I have no defensive backbone on this team, I'm just going to take damage here. If they boom, they boom, but they didn't. So now I'm threatening to get the KO here. They can go to Starmie, whose Ice Beam is somewhat threatening, but shouldn't kill me with my +1 Spit Def. I'm just going to Giga Drain to get basically all my HP back. Tyranitar's here, and I can just Giga Drain this. Do a lot of damage. It can go for Dragon Dance if it would like. And then I'm going to switch to Salamence here, most likely. That's right, because HP Bug is doing nothing to me, except they go for Rock Slide, calling that. But that's kind of still fine, because neutral Tyranitar should not be able to kill my Metagross, and I'm going to go for Earthquake, because it's safe to finish off the Tyranitar with. And it also catches Metagross coming in, which is really nice. So, Mence is here. I think I'm going to Boom on this. I get Fire Blasted for a pretty sizable chunk, but as long as I didn't get burned, I was fine. I think even if I got burned, I probably still would have been fine, because I could just finish off with Starmie. But we're gearing up for Starmie to win this game. I go to Suicune first, because I think Suicune's going to be a little bit easier to handle the Tyranitar if that was the switch in. It's also pretty fine into Celebi. Yeah, I get 1v1'd, but I was able to keep Ice Beaming in such a way that the Celebi now is so low. If it had Recover, which it probably doesn't, it was probably Leech 3 attacks, then I was fine. I kind of have to hit the pump there to win the game, because if that was a DD HP Bug, Mence, they could have handled my Celebi, and they would have handled my my own Tyranitar as well. Although I was 252 HP Tyranitar, I maybe could have lived a Earthquake from their Tyranitar, so it's good to know. But I mean, you have an 80% chance to hit the Hydro Pump. I feel like winning 4 out of 5 times is you would take that. Starmie versus Solrock. Okay, Solrock is a very weird lead. You don't see that ever, but Starmie says, I don't care, I'm just going to pump. And yeah, look at how much damage that did to this, presumably, Curselax. It's pretty nice. I'm going to go for Meteor Mash, and I feel like that does a lot to the Swampert, and it doesn't have an item, so it's probably Npert. I don't want Npert to get behind a sub, so I'm just going to Earthquake again with the Metagross. And now I'm going to switch to Suicune. Reason being is that I think that Metagross's HP is probably a little bit more valuable to me than Suicune's because of this Snorlax. So I would just stay in with Suicune. Obviously, I stay in with Suicune there and go for Ice Beam, because I don't want Salamence to get a Dragon Dance if it is Dragon Dance Salamence. And then I have plenty of Pokemon that can switch and get Salamence on the Revenge Kill. So, yeah, that's kind of fine. I'll go for Ice Beam. I'm not really predicting too heavily there. I'll go to Mence, predicting them to predict my Metagross, and that was really nice. And now I'm going to pivot to Tyranitar. So a double switch, you're not going to see that too commonly out of me with this team, but I'm into Solrock, and I'm like, all right, well, Solrock is probably doing some, like, it's either booming or it's going to try to baton pass something, right? So I was going to take that as an opportunity to DD, but I forgot the rule of thumb in ADV is that if somebody leads a Shitmon, it has HP fighting. So Solrock, a Shitmon in every sense of the word. Yeah, of course it has HP fighting, duh. But I feel like there's a decent chance that that's banded HP fighting, so I can go to Salamence and get a Dragon Dance. And now I'm +1 speed. The opposing Salamence is neutral. And we've had a discussion about this. Z Panther, I think, says you switch here, but I have a team that is all gas, no brakes. I gotta click Rock Slide. And I get the Rock Slide into the Solrock, who reveals to not have an item, so it's got to be banded. I'm going to let the Metagross go here because I feel like I need Salamence to win the game. I'm going to switch Salamence in because if Snorlax comes in, I get the attack drop on it, and I'll go for Dragon Dance myself. I get self-destructed there, and all that stuff I just said, kind of over. I go for Pump and miss, but it's Agility Gross, which might be okay. because I get the pump and I crit, and that wins the game here, because my opponent reveals to have Magneton, but I miss my next pump. So there you go. Live by the pump, die by the pump. Can Celebi manage to overcome the odds and win this game here? It's a great question. HP Fire Magneton, not doing very much to my Celebi, but if I ever get crit, I'm screwed. I have to boost up to the point where I can one-shot Salamence, because if Salamence gets 2 moves against me, it's over. So I'm just going to calm mine up until whichever point that Salamence is going to die, and my opponent is super duper throwing this game right now. Should have went to Salamence immediately, but they don't, and if I'm faster, I will get the kill here, and based on Sandstorm damage, I am. So thank you to CTX admin for throwing the game after getting the hacks. No, I'm sorry, that was a little bit aggressive, but see, I missed 2 out of 3 pumps. Yeah, I crit one of them, but the expected outcome was I was going to hit 2 out of 3, so like should have hit the as long as I hit the Metagross twice, which was favored to happen, then I would have been fine. It would have been really nice to hit the Magneton too, because then Starmie would have cleaned up, but that's why you have Super Celebi in the back. Alright, last game. I know we've had a lot of games, but we kind of blitzed through them because all these games are quick. This game here is one of my best games on the ladder. And I'm just gonna play it. If you've watched Zetz's replay of the week, you probably have already seen this game. And shoutouts to Yerb, who's in the Discord, who I believe is Glock and Irachi, which is a fantastic nickname, and I'm gonna steal it from you. One day I will. Starmie versus Tyranitar lead. That's exactly what we want to see. I go for Pump, and I do a massive chunk to Swampert. That's probably an end pert. And I don't hit them into Salac range, so that's actually really, really nice for me. I go for Ice Beam, predicting a switch to something like Salamence, and I catch the Metagross and freeze it. It's got leftovers, and I hit the pump and get a crit, which is really, really good for me. Granted, it would have had to thaw to ever get any value against the Starmie, but if it did and went for Boom, then that could have been nice. My opponent will go to Raikou on the revenge kill, but I'm going to go to Salamence, who should take Raikou on pretty well. My opponent goes for Calm Mind, which is not great. I could be in a bad spot. If it had HP Ice, it would have killed me, but I decided that, I mean, my best play is probably sack the Salamence and then play for Aerodactyl to force this out. The Swampert's pretty low. The Tyranitar doesn't want to switch into Earthquake. I would force them to reveal something else on the team. But they didn't have HP Ice, and they didn't kill, and they didn't para with Thunderbolt. So I'm pretty nice, in a pretty nice position here. Tyranitar will come in on my Salamence, and I'm thinking to myself, the only thing that Tyranitar can do that is bad for me is Dragon Dance. If it kills my Salamence, then fantastic. I'm going back to Starmie. And frankly, I could go to Aerodactyl or something like that as well. So I'm gonna Dragon Dance, and if they Dragon Dance, like I'm perfect then. So yeah, now I can just go for an Earthquake and kill the Mence, or sorry, the Tyranitar. They'll reveal their own Mence, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, this is also the same idea that Z Panther was talking about before. If you're +1 Mence against another Mence, he says that both Mences should still switch, because you don't really want to do the Mence duel. There's too much variance, and it can go really badly both ways. But I'm all gas, no brakes. I'm taking that Rock Slide. Yeah, and then the Mence is really low here, and Starmie can come in, and I can click basically whatever I want. I click Ice Beam because it's pretty consistent, though. And then they reveal Lastmon Regirock. All right, that's dead. There's no water resist on this team. Well, I guess there's Salamence, but that's not a great water resist because it's so weak to Ice Beam. And then Swampert is in, and I'm just going to Ice Beam. And yeah, that was a 12-turn game against a 1600 rated opponent. That is really, really good. And why that's really, really good is ladder challenges. I don't know how much you guys know about ladder challenges. Let me see if I can actually pull this up here. ADV ladder challenges. Yeah, let's stick this over here. All right. And we're gonna do this presentation mode. I think this is. No, we'll do this presentation mode. We need to see a little more. All right. So, right. Shout out to Sachimberto for replying to this thread here. But this is the thread for ladder achievements. I call them sometimes ladder challenges. There's some challenges here for achieving certain elo. I got close to this gold, but I'll need to queue some more on my main account to try to get to gold. I have seen some really interesting teams being used thanks to these ladder challenges, and particularly it's these fun challenges that inspire some creativity here. There's spirits for monotype teams. You have to achieve this elo here with a monotype team. I think I could probably get to silver with a monotype team. I'll have to think about one. Flanky, if you're watching, let's discuss. Guts, I think I have gotten to at least this high with a Guts team. My Blaziken team would qualify. Guts is 3 UUBLs or lower. So I'm pretty confident I could get to 1500 with the Blaziken team. I think I have won games there before, so I could probably try that. But the luck is really the interesting one. So there are a bunch of challenges associated with luck, and I'm going to open this up. The two that are of great import here are Taken by Storm and Surgical Strike. Taken by Storm, KO all 6 of your opponent's Pokemon by turn 15. Well, I did that by turn 12, so that qualifies. Second, win a battle only sending out 3 Pokemon or less. Well, I only revealed 2 of my Pokemon here. So this qualified for both of these at the same time, which I feel like a lot of people who have these challenges have... I'm going to pause that, actually. A lot of people who have either of these challenges complete have probably done them both in the same, because most likely if you're winning in 15 turns, it's because your lead is just phenomenal into their team. In particular, my opponent like not having a great water resist, and I led like the strongest Starmie known to mankind. That was really nice. But some of these other ones are really interesting. Stavless, I feel like could be really cool. And the like Kaboom could be funny. Some of these I think would be ridiculously terrible, like Death by 1,000 Cuts. This Guacamole one is kind of interesting with this Pseudo Wudo team. What a terrible Armaldo set, by the way. Um, but winning with that's got to be pretty tough. So in any case, it was really cool to get those. I've replied to this thread. I'm trying to get my ladder achievements, my badges, you know. Um, well, maybe when I run out of Pokemon to do videos on, maybe I'll try to do some of these challenges and document my journey on some of them. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video, and I hope that you guys are interested in seeing some more stuff in the future here.